Hey, I have a scary story for you this time. You know how Miss Moffat likes to share those with you. This one's called Good Night, Sleep Tight, and Don't Let the Bedbugs Bite by Diane, deGroat. I hope you don't get too scared. So the kids are going to go to Camp Heidi Ho and spend the night. And our friend Gilbert is going to go with his classmates. And he's getting ready to do that. He's packing all of his things to spend the night. Gilbert was excited. Everyone from his day camp was going on an overnight trip to Camp Heidi Ho. Mother helped him pack his favorite pajamas, bug spray, and a flashlight. Don't forget Teddy, she said, holding up Gilbert's stuffed possum. I'm not taking Teddy, Gilbert said. Sleepaway camp is for big kids. Frank was worried when Gilbert met him on the bus. He said, my brother told me there's a ghost at Camp Heidi Ho. Patty peered over her seat and said, he's just trying to scare you. But Louis said, it's true. Everybody knows about Heidi Ho's ghost. Ooh, you better watch out, Gilbert. He might jump out and yell, boo! But Gilbert said, you can't scare me, Louis. There's no such thing as ghosts. After a long ride, the bus pulled into the Heidi Ho campground. Gilbert and Frank unpacked in the boys' cabin. Oh, bunk beds, Frank said, taking a top bunk. I like sleepaway camp. Me too, said Gilbert, taking the bottom bunk. But Louis said, just wait until dark. Then we'll see how much you like it. You'd better not try to scare me, Gilbert said, or you'll be sorry. Boo-hoo, said Louis. I'm scared. I guess you figured out that Louis is kind of a bully. For the rest of the afternoon, they swam and canoed and hiked with the big kids. Gilbert was hot and thirsty after all that activity, and he drank 3 cups of juice at supper time. Oh, you're drinking bug juice, Louis said as he passed Gilbert's table. Gilbert looked at his empty cup. He was sure it was fruit juice, but he drank a big glass of water to wash it down just in case. After supper, they roasted marshmallows over the campfire. Louis said, let's tell ghost stories. He was shining his flashlight under his chin and making scary faces. Frank whispered in Gilbert's ear, I don't think I want to hear a ghost story. Me either, said Gilbert quietly. But one of the big kids had already stood up, and he said, the campers here who have been here all summer have heard this story, but I'll share it with our guests. He started speaking in a spooky voice. What I'm about to tell you is all true. It happened many years ago, right here at Heidi Ho. It was a dark and stormy night. The camper went out to get some water from the bathroom. He had his canteen and a candle, but the wind blew the candle out. Poof! And he lost his way. He wandered for days, weeks, and finally years. They say he's still lurking around here as a ghost. Oh, everyone jumped. Patty's eyes were very wide. Gilbert's were wider. They call him Lost Leonard, and sometimes you can hear him in the woods at night, banging his canteen like this. storyteller banged a metal can against a rock. Clankety clank, clank, clank. Then he crouched down and he said softly, and sometimes if you listen very carefully you can hear Lost Leonard crying, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. No one made a sound. Gilbert held his breath, and then right from behind him went boo! Oh! Gilbert flew off his seat. He turned and saw Louis laughing at him. "Louis," he said, "that's not funny." "What a scaredy cat," Louis said. "I am not," Gilbert answered, but his heart was beating very quickly. "Lights out," the counselor said. "Good night. Sleep tight, and don't let the bedbugs bite," Louis answered. Everybody shut off their flashlights, except Gilbert. What if there were bedbugs in his bed? Oh! He checked inside his sleeping bag. There weren't any bugs in it, but there was something soft and furry there. Teddy! His mother must have slipped it in when Gilbert wasn't looking. "Hey, scaredy cat!" Louis shouted from the other side of the room. "Lights out!" Gilbert turned off his flashlight. He closed his eyes. He opened his eyes. He closed them again. It was so dark he couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. He hugged his Teddy tightly until he finally fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, Gilbert was wide awake again. He wished he hadn't had so much juice, and now he had to go to the bathroom. He was afraid to go out in the dark, but he was more afraid of wetting the bed. Louis would make fun of him again. The more he thought about it, the more he had to go. "Frank," he whispered. Frank snored. He was sound asleep. Gilbert would have to go alone. Carefully he followed the path to the bathroom, but it seemed much longer than he remembered. He could easily get lost. Maybe he would end up wandering around the woods for years, just like Lost Leonard. At last Gilbert spotted the bathroom cabin and ran toward it, but he tripped on a rock and dropped his flashlight. It went out, and when he tried to find it, he knocked over some garbage cans. Gilbert groped around until he finally found the door. He stepped inside and was about to turn on the light when he heard an awful sound. Boo-hoo! Gilbert froze. The cry grew louder. Boo-hoo! It sounded like it was inside the bathroom. "It's Lost Leonard," Gilbert thought. Gilbert turned. He tried to run, but his feet wouldn't budge, and instead he held his breath and flipped the light switch. "Ah!" Gilbert screamed. "Yeah!" Someone else screamed at the same time, but it wasn't a ghost. It was Louis. His hair was sticking straight up, and he clutched a stuffy in his arms. Louis sniffed. "Gilbert, you better hide. Lost Leonard is out there. Didn't you hear that clanking noise?" Gilbert could see that Louis was very frightened. He felt sorry for him, but not sorry enough to tell him the truth. Gilbert bravely opened the door and called, "Hello? Hello, Leonard? Are you out there?" There was no answer. "I think he's gone," Gilbert said. "I don't hear any clanking." "You're right," said Louis, peeking out the door. But he waited for Gilbert to go out first, just in case. As they walked back to the cabin, Louis said, I wasn't really crying, you know. I think I had something in my eye. Gilbert said, that happens to me sometimes, too. Then he stopped to pick up the flashlight and his teddy. He held up the stuffed possum and said, my mother packed this in my bag. Louis nodded and said, mine, too. On the bus ride home, Patty said, sleepaway camp was fun. Then she added, except for the ghost story. I kept thinking I heard noise in the middle of the night. Frank said, I'd be scared if I heard Boss Leonard. Louis laughed and said, what a bunch of scaredy cats. But when Gilbert turned around and yelled, boo! Louis jumped out of his seat. He was quiet for the rest of the ride home. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story. I also hope it wasn't too scary. There's more stories to share with you later.